rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
It always helps when I hit the button. Oh, hello everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. So let's see, where did I do? All right. Okay. So obviously this weekend is Memorial Day weekend. It's the unofficial start of summer. And I hope that everybody has their flags ready for Monday. Now, Monday, don't forget that the flag is flown at half staff from basically sunrise until noon. And at noon, you raise the flag to the top of the flagpole. And what that is supposed to symbolize, of course, is a nation that was in mourning in the morning. Mourning in the morning. Okay, that wasn't intentional. And that the nation will continue on when you raise the flag to the top of the flagpole at noon. That we are mourning our losses and that we are continuing on. We will persevere. We will continue on when we raise the flag to noon. So there you go. I hope everybody has them ready. I know that I still have to go out and put up the flags. I told you about that. I think it was yesterday. I still have to go out and put the flags up along our fence line and mailbox and stuff like that. Although it's not like you can't tell. I've already got 2 flags on my gate posts for up there. And then of course there's the big flagpole. So I'm excited though, because this will be the first flying of our 6x10 flag. So we'll have to see, what happens there as far as that goes. And there's also one other thing too, apparently, and this I wasn't really 100% sure of, but apparently there's also a tradition that at 3 p.m. Eastern time, there is supposed to be a moment of silence, which for those of you who, struggle with the time zone math, that would be noon back here on Pacific Coast. So 3 p.m. there on the East Coast, then obviously, 2 p.m., 1 p.m., and noon, respectively, coming back toward the West Coast. But that is my understanding. I don't know how many people actually observe that for that. So I don't know. Anyway, all of that being said, I hope you enjoy this Memorial Day weekend. I am off my regular job on Monday. So yeah, we'll be doing a couple of things, hopefully, and maybe, going and visiting. There's a local cemetery here close by that has that basically has puts out all the flags, and they put out the big flags, the 3x5 flags, not the little ones that sometimes you see like the Scouts and stuff put out, but they'll put out the big flags at the cemetery. It's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And Mrs. Whiskey wants us to go. So we'll probably do that on Monday morning, head over there and just, check it out, pay our respects, and go on from that. Also too, Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio tonight after the show, I'm going to be working on helping out my partner in crime. And we'll be doing a special entire day kind of tribute where, we'll be playing American-themed songs at specific times throughout the day. So you may want to listen to Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio. I mean, of course, listen to it anyway, because it's a fantastic group of music. But that being said, we're attempting tonight. I've got to put together basically go in and start putting in some of the music for Monday, so we can at least get that taken care of. Because, of course, at Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio, we respect all of our military, first responders, service people across wherever they are. And so you can take Dallas Moore Outlaw Radio with you on your mobile device, wherever you are throughout the world, or you should be able to. But I think, I think we can only transmit in the U.S., Mexico, Canada, and in Great Britain because of the royalties and stuff like that. But anyway, secret hint: if you use a VPN, you can get around that. Anyway, I digress. All right. Let's go ahead and get tonight kicked off. Tonight, we have one of our favorites for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I kind of got stuck there trying to think about it. We have Coco, Cam, and Sean up for tonight's Pledge of Allegiance. Now, for those of you that are not aware, I know many of you are, but for some that might be listening or viewing this program for the first time, Sean is normally a nonverbal autistic young man, and he gets excited whenever the Pledge of Allegiance is done, and so he will actually start reciting it. And so what you're going to hear on this is he will start off reciting the pledge, then he'll be dropping into his typical mode, and then you'll hear him come back at the end. This is just, to me, it's one of the best ones that I've received so far, in terms of the, not saying that, all of them are great, don't get me wrong, but this one's one of the best. It's one of the ones that touches all of the Whiskey Warrior P1's hearts. And yeah, so let's go ahead and kick that off. So if you are of mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me, and place your hand over your heart and follow along with Coco, Cam, and Sean as they recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And, of course, we thank you, Coco, Cam, and Sean, for that wonderful rendition of the pledge. If you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself performing the pledge in your style, and then take that audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, and send it off to fans, that's FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation. I have some pictures for later on tonight, where apparently I'm traveling quite a bit this weekend. Anyway, a couple of the P1 Whiskey Warriors have taken my the hat that they've received, along with a couple of other things, and sent it, or have sent me photos. So we'll take a look at those a little bit later in the program. All right, tonight's headline sponsor, is the Institute on the Constitution. The Institute on the Constitution was established in 2004 as a 501c3 nonprofit with one singular mission, and that is to restore the constitutional republic through grassroots education. All courses and materials are developed using primary source documents and taught from the American view of law and government as defined in the Declaration of Independence in the following 3 key points. 1, there is a God. 2, our rights come from him. And 3, the purpose of civil government is to secure and protect our God-given rights. The IOTC offers the opportunity to educate yourself on our most precious founding document, the Constitution of the United States. They also provide tools to educate your community and get involved with local government. Start by taking their free U.S. Constitution course and go from there. Use my affiliate link, iotc.americanperspective.online, to sign up. And while you are there, take a moment to look through their other course material and information. My affiliate link, once again, is iotc.americanperspective.online to get great content to learn about our historical founding and support the show in the process. That's iotc.americanperspective.online. Or if you just want to purchase this fabulous Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution to support the show, go to constitution.americanperspective.online. Check this thing out. It's got 1/8 of an inch of Saddleback leather wrapped around pages that are water and tear resistant. It has fantastic stitched binding, no cheapo glue here, folks, and it doesn't fall apart. But if it does, they have a 100-year warranty against materials and manufacturing defects, such that you can send it back to the manufacturer and they will either fix it or replace it for free. As 3 Chevy points out, the amendments are in Roman numeral ascending order. Yeah. And also, too, it has sexy rounded corners, according to my Rumblers, as well. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, buddy tasted. Sorry, excuse me. Let me start that again. It is buddy tested, buddy approved, Billy tasted, Billy approved, and my youngest whiskey warrior has confirmed that the information contained within will help you to study for your civics exam in Scouts, civics badge in Scouts, and also your civics exam too, if you still have those in class. Head on over to constitution.americanperspective.online and get yours today. Also too, don't forget to check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's offerings. And I, of course, thank them for allowing me to be a brand affiliate. Yeah, my Whiskey Warrior P1s are running around saying it repels Democrats. Yeah. Speaking about that, I was on X earlier today, but no, I was not on X and getting a little short for turning on the feed to the Rumble side. Okay. The reason why for that was because I was going to get this, the Knob Creek number 9 years aged Knob Creek, Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey, which is being drank out of my It Takes Stones to Drink with Whiskey glass. There's the stones in the bottom. Hey, if you haven't come on over to rumble.com to take a look at the video, you really should, because there is actual whiskey stones in the bottom of the whiskey glass. And that's right. It takes whiskey to drink with stones. Good job there, 3 Chevy. Throw me off and make me laugh. That's good. All right. Requisite first mouthful. Very, very nice. All right. Also, like I was saying before, there was an account on X that was claiming that what they should do, which I agree, but what they should do is they should have all of our elected representatives. They were focusing on the Republicans, but let's admit it, the Democrats probably would fail more than the Republicans would. But the account was essentially saying that all of them should go through a civics exam. And I essentially said, hey, I agree with you, but let's start with the Democrats first. And then that being said, I basically said, hey, as long as your civics test is proven to be 100% actual American civics and not some made up bullcrap that you do, I'm willing to take it. And I think I do quite well, to be honest with you. But anyway, hello, Polish dog, Kibalsa. Anyway, all right, let's get on to the show. So got through all of that. Now, first up is we now have video of exactly what Judge Dugan did to interfere with that the ICE apprehension of the individual that was in her courtroom. The video, which was obtained through an open records request, allegedly shows Duggan confronting federal agents outside her courtroom and instructing them to speak with the chief judge. The prosecutors then allege that she permitted the illegal alien Flores Ruiz to exit the courtroom through a secure passage typically reserved for jurors, and enabling him to temporarily evade immigration enforcement officers. Well, let's go and take a look. This is out of CBS 58 News in Milwaukee that is going to talk about this. Where is this? There it is. So let's go ahead and take a look. Wait a second. Hold on. I'm going to bounce back and then come back. There we go, to get it centered on the page. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video of the reporting from 58 News in Milwaukee. And this is about 3 minutes, so it's a little bit longer than usual, but there we go.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight on the News at 9. I'm Jessa Bryceback.
And I'm Natalie Shepard. We have a lot to get to tonight, but we begin with the latest in the arrest of a Milwaukee County judge. Tonight, we're seeing for the first time how that confrontation between Judge Hannah Duggan and federal agents unfolded just over a month ago.
Yeah, that moment sparked a chain of events that ended with Judge Hannah Duggan under arrest and now indicted, accused of blocking federal officers from taking a man into custody in her courtroom. Adam Reif has been on this story from the very start, and he's live now with what all this new video reveals. Hours and hours of video, Adam.
It is, Natalie and Jessa. This is the incident that started the chain reaction that now includes a federal case and national protests. The video shows Judge Hannah Duggan interacting with federal agents outside her courtroom, then directing them away as Eduardo Flores Ruiz left the courthouse and ran from them. The incident begins at about 8:43 in the morning, April 18th, when Eduardo Flores Ruiz arrives on the 6th floor of the Milwaukee County Courthouse for a hearing in a domestic abuse case. He meets his attorney in the hallway and walks towards Circuit Court Judge Hannah Duggan's courtroom. Along the way, he passes plainclothes federal agents who are sitting on a bench. They are there to detain him. After Flores Ruiz walks by, the agents turn to each other and appear to confirm his identity amongst themselves. But a few moments later, Judge Duggan and another judge approach the agents sitting on the bench. A criminal complaint against Duggan later said she was alerted to their presence by a court official. That complaint says during this interaction, Duggan and the agents disagreed over the type of warrant they had to arrest Flores Ruiz. According to the complaint, Duggan ordered the agents to go to the chief judge's office. Video shows her pointing them through a double door. She then turns back to speak with other agents further down the hall and orders them through the doors as well. Shortly after that, with the agents gone from the hallway, Eduardo Flores Ruiz and his attorney exit into the hallway through a different door. As they walk down the hall toward the elevators, they pass another plainclothes federal agent. Neither they nor Judge Duggan seem to have noticed at the time. That agent motions to another to follow Flores Ruiz. Security video shows Flores Ruiz exiting through a basement exit. Upstairs on the 6th floor, the other agents have left the chief judge's office and worked their way downstairs. Flores Ruiz left the building onto 9th Street. Videos of the street shows the agents catching up to him. Flores Ruiz runs across 10th Street while trying to get away, but the agents catch him and arrest him. Now, these clips are among hours of video we secured today after weeks of records requests. Judge Duggan was arrested 1 week later after this video. She has pleaded not guilty to the 2 charges she faces, and her federal trial starts in July. Natalie and Jessup, back to you.
Adam Reif live in our studio. Pretty dramatic stuff there. Thank you.
All right. So there you go. That's what she did. And it seems pretty damn obvious. It's pretty damn obvious on this. Yeah. So, anyway, these Democrats seem to think that they're above the law. So, I have been corrected. I stepped out of order, folks. That's why I knew things were a little off kilter. I stepped out of order here. I kind of do this, occasionally. Anyway, so here we go for tonight's segment, of course, which is On This Day in American History. And of course, for On This Day in American History, we read from the American Patriots Almanac, written by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb, chock full of all kinds of factoids and little information. You know, leave it to Becky. To Becky, our Australian contingent, to get me back on track. Anyway. Oh, which, Becky, before I get into this, has there ever been, or do you know the saying where it takes a Land Rover to get you into the Outback, but a Toyota Land Cruiser to get you back from it? I heard that on social media today, and I just thought I'd check with you to see if that's actually a thing. Anyway, that being said, it's supposed to be like an Australian saying. Anyway, all right. Excuse me. So today is May 24th, and we're going to talk about a fantastic group of people. In fact, this group of people amongst pretty much, I would say these folks are probably the major reason as to why we were able to keep our communications secure during World War II from the Japanese in particular. Anyway, so the Navajo Code Talkers. During World War II, the U.S. military faced a deadly communications problem in the Pacific. The Japanese often succeeded in intercepting and deciphering Allied messages. It was getting harder and harder to invent codes the enemy couldn't crack. The solution came from the Navajo, quote, code talkers. Men from the Navajo Nation who put their native language to work for the Marines. In May of 1942, 29 Navajo recruits gathered in San Diego and soon began devising a code that proved to be one of the most foolproof in the history of warfare. How did this ingenious code work? Well, the code talkers started by creating strings of seemingly unrelated Navajo words. Once translated into English, the first letter of each word was used to spell out a message. More than one Navajo word could be used to stand for each English letter, making the code even more confusing to the Japanese. For example, for the letter A, code talkers could use the words, oh boy, I'm going to be tested here for this. All right. I'm going to be tested for this. Wolachi, which is for ant, Bilasana, which is apple, or Senil, which is axe. One way to send the word navy was sab, which was for needle, okay? Wolachi, which was ant, Abkebdi Glini, Victor, and Sab Abzob, Yucca. Sometimes the code talkers use Navajo words to stand for military terms. The Navajo word for hummingbird stood for a fighter plane. The word for shark meant a destroyer. More than 400 Navajos served as U.S. Marine code talkers in the Pacific, sending radio messages between command posts and front lines. The Japanese never broke the code. Think about that. The Japanese never broke the code. Without a doubt, these brave men saved countless lives and helped speed the Allied victory. At the Battle of Iwo Jima alone, 6 code talkers sent and received more than 800 messages in the first 2 days of fighting, all without error. One signal officer, which is where I served, was in the signal corps, but one signal officer later said, were it not for the Navajos, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima. That is tonight's On This Day in American History. A fantastic story. If you ever get the opportunity to see the movie Wind Talkers, Wind Talkers was a very good movie. It does have Nicolas Cage. I know some people may not like Nicolas Cage, but he is a phenomenal actor. But anyway, just incredible. Just incredible. You know, an incredible piece of engineering and intelligence to be able to set something like that up for a very crucial time in our nation's history. And we owe them a debt of gratitude, along with all of the others who have died for this country as well. All right. Now that that's been corrected and we're back on track where we're supposed to be, let me go ahead and finish up the story about the judge. So you heard in there that the trial is set to start in July. That is something that we are definitely going to have to watch because, you know, the left keeps talking about how no one is above the law, but yet for whatever reason, they want to call out the fact that the judges are above the law, including all of these federal district court judges that are stepping unconstitutionally outside of their boundaries and putting nationwide blanket orders against the president of the United States to keep him from doing things that, well, let's face it, I mean, we the people, the vast majority of the people, through both the electoral and popular vote, want him to do. So anyway, that being said, we also have the leftist sanctuary cities, and within sanctuary states, at least some of them. Well, the Department of Justice, reportedly in the National Pulse here, is also going to go after these sanctuary cities in a legal crackdown. So the Department of Justice has filed a lawsuit against New Jersey cities in particular, accusing them of obstructing federal immigration enforcement through their sanctuary policies. The legal action targets Newark, Jersey City, Patterson, and Hoboken, claiming that their local rules unconstitutionally hinder the federal authorities' ability to work with local law enforcement to detain and deport illegal immigrants. Yeah, there we go. Acting Assistant Attorney General Yakov Roth described the city's policies as a frontal assault on the federal immigration laws and the federal authorities that administer them. Now, don't get me wrong, and don't forget, this has already been adjudicated all the way up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has made it clear. Now, keep in mind, the Supreme Court could change their mind and change the course of history. But generally speaking, immigration has always been a federal system. And in fact, the Constitution basically states that Congress is supposed to create a naturalization path, a naturalization system. That's one of the items that show up in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, under what Congress is supposed to be making laws about. Education, healthcare, neither of those two show up, but this does. And so realistically, these cities are now on the opposite side of the law with this, because again, they are constitutionally unable, based off of the 10th Amendment as well, they are unconstitutionally acting against the federal government's specific and explicit constitutional right to create and maintain and, of course, enforce those immigration statuses and laws. And so I don't think these these cities really have a leg to stand on, to be honest with you, provided that the Supreme Court actually follows their precedent in terms of all of this, along with the fact that the Constitution does clearly state that immigration is within the purview of Article 1, meaning the Congress, and within Article 2, the presidency, in terms of enforcement and enactment. So I'm not exactly sure that these people are actually going to be able to really, again, have a leg to stand on with all of this. Well, there's a reason why these people are trying to protect all of these illegal aliens that are here. And also, too, don't forget that not too long ago, they were saying, oh, no, illegal aliens, now they can't vote in our elections. They can't. That's not happening. But it's good that it is. Well, here's another story from that file. I've shown you quite a few videos of people saying, oh, yeah, we've been voting. We've had voting. We're, yes, we are illegal, but we've been voting. And things like that. Well, now, here's yet another one to prove the leftist Democrats are wrong. Here in the Daily Caller, an illegal migrant, illegal alien, hiding in the U.S. for decades, was picked up after allegedly voting in an election and stealing government benefits. Oh, wait a minute. I thought they weren't getting government benefits or anything like that because they're illegal. Yeah, right. Anyway, a federal grand jury indicted a Colombian national on Thursday on allegations of living in the U.S. unlawfully for years under a stolen identity, receiving hundreds of thousands in government benefits and voting in the last presidential election. Lina Maria Orovio Hernandez, a 59-year-old Colombian woman residing in Boston, has lived in the U.S., allegedly, for more than 20 years under a stolen identity and has been improperly receiving roughly $400,000 in rental assistance. Social Security and food stamp benefits, according to a press release by the Department of Justice. Okay. Prosecutors say she not only voted in the 2024 presidential election, but has been registered to vote since January of 2023. For more than 20 years, this is U.S. Attorney Leah B. Foley said in a prepared statement, for more than 20 years, this defendant is alleged to have built an entire life on the foundation of a stolen identity, including illegally voting in our presidential election. Thought that wasn't happening, Democrats. Yeah. And collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars in government benefits intended for Americans in need. Now, keep in mind, the big, beautiful bill that was just passed has actually trimmed out off of Medicaid and Medicaid. Well, I think it's just Medicaid. Might be Medicare as well. But has trimmed out the ability for illegal aliens to actually gain benefits. And this is what the Democrats are freaking out about in terms of saying, oh, yeah, it's shutting down Medicaid. Okay, once again, Democrats, I'm just telling you right now, I want you, again, civics guy, hello, I want you to show me where within the written words, not well, it's implied. No, I want to see it within the written words of the Constitution, where it essentially says that health care is a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. Because again, keep in mind, the 10th Amendment is there, which basically states that if it's not explicitly stated in the Constitution, as a federally mandated responsibility, nor specifically prohibited by it to the states. It is a state and people issue. So in other words, the federal government shouldn't even have health care as a part of its deal at all. And this is one of the things that I keep telling people. I mean, is it frustrating? Absolutely. Is it gonna cause some definite issues with people that have been on it for decades now? Yeah. But realistically, we've got to get our federal government back inside its constitutionally mandated boundaries. Now, you could easily put forth a state-run Social Security, a state-run Medicare, state-run Medicaid, with zero numbers or zero money coming from the federal government. And that would be constitutional. There you go. There's your answer, Democrats, in terms of sitting here. But no. They would say, no, we can't do that because, think of all the money that we're bilking from the American people in federal taxes that has been going to this boondoggle, unconstitutional programs for decades. And, again, it's just, I'm just simply saying, if you want to follow the Constitution the way, and you want to follow laws like they keep claiming that like Donald Trump is not doing, if you actually want to follow the law, that would be one that would definitely be on the books for you to follow. Anyway, so, yeah, this individual apparently is allegedly showing who this individual is, this Hernandez person is on video right here. So, yeah. Anyway, she allegedly used her stolen identity to obtain a Massachusetts real ID, along with 8 other state IDs, and apply for a U.S. passport, according to prosecutors. She's accused of unlawfully collecting $259,589 in Section 8 rental assistance benefits between October of 2011 and January of 2025. That's 14 years for those that can't do math really quickly. $101,257 in Social Security disability benefits from July 2014 to January of 2025, and $43,348 in Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, benefits between April of 2005 and January of 2025. That would be 20 years worth of SNAP assistance. Yeah. Altogether, the Columbia National is charged with one count of fraudulent voter registration, 1 count of fraudulent voting, 1 count of false representation of a Social Security number, 1 count of aggravated identity theft, 1 count of making a false statement in an application for a U.S. passport, and 3 counts of receiving stolen government money or property, according to the DOJ. So, there you go. Yeah. Anyway. So these folks, I'm telling you, it's happening, people. It's again, this article is from the It's Not Happening, but I'm glad that it is files that the Democrats keep trying to put together and keep trying to push on the American people. It's all lies. It's all lies. Well, from the Joe Biden files, and I know we've been talking a lot about Joe Biden, but let's be honest, there's been some very damning revelations, not only in the Her tapes, but also in his own actions, and of course the book coming out from Jake Tapper and the other author who's from Axios. They're all talking about it. But there's another hidden, and this is even worse than, I think this is even kind of worse than even the auto pen. I mean, the auto pen was bad, but the auto pen only affected, essentially, I mean, legally affected individuals who are currently sitting on pardons that probably are unconstitutional and illegal in the first place because it wasn't the president that actually signed them. But all of that, Joe, or whoever was running the auto pen, realistically, or whoever was running the White House. Now, reportedly, I've heard that there was a group of 3 or 4 individuals, and I don't know their names right off the top of my head, but there was a group of 3 or 4 individuals who actually were like the brains, quote unquote, behind Joe Biden. Anyway, the point that I'm making here is that, yeah, I'm not going to give, sorry, G, no, I'm not going to give him a break. It should be give me a break, Jack, not give him a break. Anyway, let's move on here real quick. So here in PJ Media, and this comes from a discussion or a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing where Senator John Kennedy was floored after Energy Secretary Christopher Wright dropped a bombshell that the Department of Energy itself handed out a staggering $93 billion in loans and commitments during the final 76 days of the Biden administration. Now, for those of you who are not keeping score here, that's a huge chunk of money. $93 billion. Yes, that's with a B. And all of that is, of course, added to our $36+ trillion deficit. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, apparently Kennedy was drilling in with precision, saying, quote, the 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time that President Trump was elected and President Biden left office. Is that right? And Wright confirmed that is correct. Kennedy didn't mince words when he was asked how any agency could properly vet such massive spending in such a short window. He asked, how do you do due diligence on one loan, much less a loan, a $93 billion worth of loans? And here's what Wright said back. I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases. There were commitments made from businesses that provided no business plan, no numbers about their financial solvency, or how this project actually worked. Folks, okay, first of all, again, I'm going to go back to the Constitution, where anybody who has a civics, even our own resident civics advisor, Amy Jean Viner, hasn't bothered to contradict me in this particular area directly, which is essentially that, hey, where within Article 1, Section 8, where within Article 1, Section 8 does it say that the federal government not only has an obligation, but a constitutionally mandated responsibility for handing out loans, business loans? Where does the federal government get the ability, constitutionally speaking, to fund American business? I will answer, it doesn't. You sit here and you talk about this all day long, but nowhere within the Constitution does it say, and believe me, I have read all the entries under Article 1, Section 8, not a single one basically states that, hey, we're responsible for American businesses to hand out loans to American businesses for their success or their failure, either way. That goes for the housing market as well. Like the Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae kind of crap. All of that is not supposed to be there. It is also unconstitutional because it doesn't show up in Article 1, Section 8. as a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. Now, you see, there's a phrase in there that I keep repeating over and over and over again, and I still have yet for anybody to prove this to me. Show me in the Constitution where this is even suggested. Can't happen because it's not there. So, the senator, Senator Kennedy, asked for clarity. He says, so you're telling me that the Department of Energy, in the 76-day period before their boss was going to leave office, gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan? Wright answered bluntly, correct. Kennedy asked, no financials? Correct, Wright answers. I've come in with great concern about how this institution, this great American institution, has been run and how the American taxpayer money has been handled. Wright also acknowledged that his department is now conducting a sweeping review of those loans and grants. He says, yeah, we are, and yeah, my blood pressure is rising just thinking about what we have seen and what did happen at the department. Kennedy asked, does anybody ever come to the Department of Energy to get some of this free money and lie to you? While Wright said he hasn't experienced it yet, he did say it was a reasonable assumption that it has happened. I seem to recall Stacey Abrams doing something with green energy. Yeah, and I seem to recall an article stating that that green energy company was basically almost at the level of bankruptcy before they all of a sudden got funded with a grant or a loan from the federal government that make them into basically put their net worth into the millions when they were basically almost out of money. I wonder, just saying, I wonder if this is one of those $93 billion loans. And I'm not saying there were many 93 billion. I'm just saying as a part of the 93 billion in the scenario. Yeah. Now, of course, Kennedy also raised concern about the nature of applicants who sought these funds, pointing out the potential for fraud. He says, is it conceivable that some of these folks came to you with a half-baked idea? Very conceivable, Wright told him. In fact, I've seen such plans that didn't have a business plan, just a promise to develop one later. Yeah. I got to tell you, if you were to go to a bank, just saying, if you were to go to a bank with a half-baked idea and no way to actually prove that you can earn the money back to get a business loan, you would never be given the business loan. I'm just saying. I mean, you know, I'm a small business owner, and I can tell you that no bank would come to me and say, hey, we're just going to hand you this money. You know, whether or not you have the ability to pay it back or not really doesn't matter. We're just going to hand you this money. Yeah. Anyway, so here we go, folks. This is, again, another one of the obvious fraud and abuse that the federal government, under Democrats, now let's keep in mind, I mean, the Republicans have been a part of this in the past as well. I'm sure this isn't just, reserved for the Democrats, but the fact that $93 billion was handed out under the Biden administration in the last 76 days of his administration without any kind of verification or backup proof or business plans or anything else is just ludicrous. See, this is part of the problem that Milton Friedman was talking about. When you have essentially just a gob full of money that is not your money and you have no responsibility whatsoever to ensure that that money is actually spent wisely, you just don't give a crap. And you hand it out to everybody. You just hand it away. You don't care. And when you top that off with the idea that Democrats just think that, hey, we can just print more money. Who the hell cares? We can go and print all the money that we want because we're in charge of it. And they don't even remotely have the ability to understand. It doesn't matter. We're just going to tax those high-end earners and get all of that money, all of our money back. And they don't even understand the math that basically states that the hole that we have dug ourselves into, the American government has dug itself into, could not even be funded if you were to take away 100% of every single American billionaire and even American millionaire. Okay? Who basically goes and would pay like all of their money into the pot. That wouldn't even be funding the federal government for more than, I think it's 6 months. And you would have literally zero money. You could take the entire wealth of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, everybody else in that class, and then some, all the way down to the bottom of the top, I think it's the top 5 or 10%, which the Democrats keep trying to go after. And they would only fund the federal government for 6 months. That's it. That's it. Folks, I don't think anybody really realizes how deep of a hole this federal government has put us in. And while I agree, the Trump big, beautiful bill does have an increase in the debt ceiling within it, unfortunately, sometimes there's going to be some hard choices that are going to have to be made. And I can guarantee you right now, it's all of those social programs. The vast majority of those social programs are where the money is going. And again, I keep pointing out to you multiple times, those social programs are not part of the federal government's mandated responsibility to the American people. And therefore, the 10th Amendment applies. And that's it. You want to get this government back on track? You really want to get this government back on track? Now, keep in mind, the Republicans in Congress, outside of a few, who are really trying to get this government back into its constitutional boundaries, the only way is to essentially enforce the 10th Amendment, in my opinion. If you could actually do that through a court of law and enforce the 10th Amendment on all of these programs that are, Obamacare, that's the Affordable Care Act, Social Security, everything else. And I'm sorry, but, there comes a time where you have to make tough decisions. And I'm approaching the days of Social Security, I'm telling you. But it's going to be insolvent by 2030, 2032 anyway. So I'm not going to be getting any money out of it. And I guarantee you nobody else behind me is going to get any money out of it. They got to handle it. But they, for whatever reason, even the Republicans, they just punt the can or kick the can down the road. We'll deal with it later. Yeah. Sorry. But that's not the case. So, there you go. Hello, Bam. Welcome to the program. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Becky points out our government wants to charge us for unrealized gains. Don't think that they're not considering that over here. Believe me, that's been tossed about and tossed around already, Becky. We're in that boat. I'm telling you. They're going to get to a point where they're just going to say, you know what? Everything that you make has got to go toward the federal deficit. We're calling in the marker chip for every single American household and every single working American in order to pay off all of this debt. We're calling that in. Yeah. Our government essentially in the real world would be bankrupt. So that's, yeah. Yep. All right. So I don't know if anybody has been watching this, but there was a horrific anti-Semitic attack in New York City. And the individual who did it, there were two Jewish folks that were killed. Okay. And that's pretty bad, G. G said that he's past the Social Security date and he doesn't get into it because the benefits themselves are taxed. Yeah, well, in the big, beautiful bill, they're not supposed to be. I don't know if that's going to happen. But anyway. All right, let me get back to this. So there was unfortunately, a very bad situation. It was literally a terrorist attack in New York City. And this particular individual, the two individuals that died were, of course, Jewish. The individual who did the perpetrator, which I'm not going to tell you his name, but the perpetrator basically went through, and while he was performing the attack, in this case, it was gunning people down, Israeli embassy employees. This was on Wednesday evening. And he essentially gunned them down, called out hateful anti-Semitic slurs, and basically was saying that he was doing it for Gaza, that he was doing it for the Palestinian people, so on and so forth. Obviously a fanatic of some kind. Okay. And that is, I said New York City, my bad. Polishog, my bad. You said it is in D.C. I'm looking at it now. It's Washington, D.C. So you're correct. My apologies. I correct myself. It wasn't New York City. I thought it was in New York City. So that's my bad. But anyway, the leftist mainstream media, and you want to talk about covering up for a hate crime, which this definitely was a hate crime. Okay, there is no way out of this is a hate crime. Okay, and this guy, he had a membership with essentially the radical left-wing Party for Socialism and Liberation, known as PSL. They didn't bother, the left didn't bother to even put this out, and by this I mean the left mainstream media, didn't even bother to put this out on any of their broadcasts. So MRC Newsbusters breaks this story and does a study and says broadcast networks won't even admit that the Jewish museum shooter is left-wing. Now here's the thing, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. Those people were at the museum to have a discussion in terms of how Israel, in particular, could get aid, humanitarian aid, into Gaza to help the Palestinian people. So they were there to essentially attempt to help the Palestinians in Gaza, and this nut job, left-wing nut job, goes and shoots down two of them. And none of the left-leaning programs, or broadcast networks, I should say, ABC, CBS, NBC, and PBS, even as of yesterday morning, have yet to utter a single word about the radical left-wing politics of this guy. Now, left-leaning cable CNN and MSNBC, or MSLSD if you listen to Mark Levin, and the broadcast networks from 6 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday night through 8 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, the only anchor, guest, or reporter willing to admit that the alleged shooter was a left-wing person was Jake Tapper. He's the only one. Gee, could it be that maybe Jake Tapper is actually beginning to wake up to the fact that the leftist lunatics have taken over the Democrat Party, the mainstream media, the propagandist networks, and are making it so that they keep out key pieces of information in order to protect their leftist ideologies? Could it be? I'm being told by Barb over on Facebook that one of the victims wasn't actually Jewish. She worked as a Jewish embassy employee, and the other gentleman was taking her to Israel to meet his family and was going to propose next week. Anyway, so again, just like when the perpetrator is not the proper color, meaning that when the perpetrator in a mass shooting is of another ethnic origin other than white, they are going to protect him. They're going to protect the shooter. They're going to protect the ideologies, just like they went to the extreme protection of the Nashville shooter who was transgender. They didn't want that floating around in the media. And they're covering up all of this. I mean, this is your left party. This is your leftist party, folks. This is the left wing. And again, the left-wing party for socialism and liberation. Yes, right there in the name. And they call us on the right that right-wing is anti-Semitic, that the right wing is racist, that the right wing are the... No, I'm done with that. I personally, I'm done with that. You cannot sit here and tell me because Nazism, the Nazi party itself, was the National Socialists, and they were left-wing. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some groups that are essentially ultra right-wing, that are considered ultra right-wing, that also have it. But the fact of the matter is, folks, the leftist parties, the Democrat Party has been the party of the KKK, has been the party of, against civil rights, against women voting. They have consistently throughout history been the party of the oppressors, not of the oppressed, as they want you to believe. Look it up. You can check it out. Research. Learn your history. Actual history, not the bullshit that they're sitting there trying to force feed down your throat at universities and colleges, which have been taken over by the Marxists to try and get you to succumb and become indoctrinated to the Marxist ideology. This is ridiculous. Well, here's another person. So you had Jake Tapper, who was the first one, and so far as this study was saying during that time period, that the only one that actually did it. There's also another gentleman who was normally left-wing, but he's starting to actually sound off a little bit more against the Democrat Party and against what the Democrats, the leftist Democrats, are doing. So, yeah, let's just take a listen to, and I'm not going to play the full clip. The full clip is 5 minutes and 52 seconds long. I'm not going to play the full clip. I'm only going to play it long enough for you to get the gist of what's going on. But Chris Cuomo, he goes off.
We know the shooter is a far-left activist, caught on camera shouting "Free Palestine," and as he was arrested, he kept chanting the slogan and said, "I did it for Gaza." So why the F are all these people on the left saying "if true"? And if that's who he is, and if he's not an IDF plant, and you don't want any of the blame for what just happened on you, he is described as what he is. He said what he said. Stop asking why people who understand what we're up against, like Douglas Murray, caution Joe Rogan against his comic buddies bashing Israel for sport and to develop a following. Prosecutors allege this guy fired nearly 24 bullets in this attack because he wanted to kill as many as he could. And we know what's feeding the fire, right? Don't pretend to not know what this is about. The man has been conditioned to identify with the oppression in Gaza as if he's one of them, and there are so many like him here, in our families, on our campuses. Did he know one of his victims wasn't a Jew? I love how people are using that as it somehow mitigates what this was about. You know he didn't know, right? He was there to kill Jews, obviously. But imagine if you're right, and he did know that one of them was not Jewish. So now they're targeting not just Jews, but those who stand with Jews? Now, if it's not true, and I doubt it is, that he knew, it is certainly what Islamists instruct on the extreme side, here on American soil. Did he know that the two people he murdered were leaving an event that was about coordinating more aid to Gaza? Would it even matter when he's constantly told that Israel is starving as part of a genocide? And many feeding his broken brain are in America in positions of influence and power. And even though some same people are now saying they're disgusted by this.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there because, like I said, it's a very long clip. But Chris Cuomo, I'm just telling you right now, he's not a friend of the right. But just like others that have done this, say Bill Maher, as an example, and a few others that have jumped into the fray and are now starting to call out, "Hey, guys, this is wrong. This is wrong." And he's bringing it to their attention. Now, keep in mind, again, he is not a conservative by any means. It's not as though he is already flipping everything else, but he is certainly calling this out. A few other statements that he's made is like, Democrats, my brothers and sisters, I understand why you're worried about Trump. I understand why you call him an ultimate evil, but I don't agree. Yeah. So, again, this is just, I mean, it's horrible. Okay. But, yeah. So, Rodriguez, I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to say his name, but anyway, he remains in federal custody. Charges against him expected to include multiple counts of murder and possibly terrorism-related offenses. It is bully. I mean, if they don't, I mean, seriously, if they don't charge him with terrorism, that would be a tragedy and a travesty, I should say. Anyway, yeah, we're talking about political polarization in America here, and this is one example of what is going on. And this is, again, this is coming from the left, folks. This isn't a right-winger. This isn't a right-wing fanatic. This isn't somebody who's part of an ultra-right-wing, white supremacist organization who is performing this. No, the left is the majority of the violence that is occurring here in America. The left is the violence. And yeah, Palms, you're probably right. She said, Palms pointed out the right judge will release him. Sorry, I may have misgendered you there. My apologies. But the right judge will release him. Yeah, considering it's Washington, D.C., you're probably right. Considering the hatred that the left has toward Israel. I mean, even AOC like posted something without actually calling out the left-wing rhetoric of this ass, for lack of a better term. Anyway, I'm getting frustrated with this, folks. We are going down a dark road, and the separation that we have between the right side of history, and yes, that is the correct side of history, the right side of history, which is the conservative party, the conservatives and the MAGA movement, and the leftist lunatic morons who are out there doing all of these violent attacks. I mean, they've attacked freaking Tesla. They're supposed to love electric vehicles. They're supposed to love what the electric vehicles are doing for the environment. They're not doing great things for the environment, but they don't know that because they're indoctrinated morons. And over on X, they keep talking about how Harvard is getting its money. Do you realize that Harvard has an endowment of something like 50 billion plus? They don't need government money. They don't need taxpayer money. And once again, that isn't in the Constitution. That's not part of it. Not part of Article 1, Section 8. Anyway. Well, the Democrats are now proposing a bill that is set to prevent Donald Trump from actually using a law enforcement entity to enforce law. So Congress is attempting to try, and not Congress, I shouldn't say this, but the Democrat morons who are in the, in this particular case, this is Cory Booker, and I can never remember if he's a representative or he's a senator. So this moron in the Senate, I am Spartacus in the Senate, this dumbass has unveiled a bill on Thursday that would transfer authority over the U.S. Marshals from the executive branch to the judicial branch to, quote, protect them from the Orange Man, which is bad. Democrats are apparently concerned that President Donald Trump's constant criticisms of judges that stymie his agenda, by the way, that's unconstitutional for them to do that. The only court system that can actually provide a check or a balance on either Congress or the executive, constitutionally speaking, is the Supreme Court. Because the Supreme Court is the only consistent court system that isn't created by Congress. Congress created all of the lower courts. And since Congress cannot confer power to the court system that it does not already have, and even then, it's even questionable as to whether or not they can do that, because over the course of many, many decades, they've been conferring their power over to the bureaucracy, which as an example, just got shot down in the whole Chevron deference idea. Okay. But this entire situation is basically, they're trying to take out a law enforcement entity, arguably one of the only constitutionally law enforcement entities out there. No, the FBI is not a constitutionally created entity. In fact, it wasn't even created under the Constitution. However, the U.S. Marshals were. Same thing with your sheriffs, who've been around for before the Constitution. But anyway, according to CBS News, The legislation specifies that the presidential administration would lose its authority over the marshals. The law enforcement agency is currently part of both the Department of Justice and the under the president's well, basically because it's currently part of the Department of Justice, it's under the president's control. And among other things, is tasked with protecting federal judges, courthouses, and court workers. Senator Booker, the New Jersey Democrat, said the change would help insulate U.S. Marshals from possible interference and politicization by the Trump administration. Democrats have accused President Trump of endangering the judiciary by publicly denouncing judges and their rulings on social media. Oh my gosh. I seem to recall, Spartacus, there was a guy, I think he was a senator. I think he actually was one of your senator leaders. What was his name? Oh, yes, Senator Chuck Schumer, standing on the court, standing on the steps of the Supreme Court building and calling out Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and literally threatening them by saying they will reap the whirlwind and they will pay the price for making a choice. And I also seem to recall a group of leftist lunatic morons that stood outside the personal houses of Supreme Court justices and actually violated the law. But yet you want to sit here and say that now, because the Department of Justice has control over the U.S. Marshals, that you want to take that out of the hands of the executive branch, which, again, the executive branch is the branch that enforces the law. Ergo, they are the ones who should be in charge of the law enforcement agencies. And you want to hand that over to the judiciary. Booker said since 1789, which, by the way, that's when the Constitution was ratified. 1789, the U.S. Marshals have valiantly protected our nation's judges and enforced court orders, but their dual accountability to the executive branch and the judicial branch paves the way toward a constitutional crisis. I'm not quite sure where you're going with that, Spartacus. But, yeah. Anyway, he continued his quote by saying, to ensure these necessary functions are carried out, Congress must act to move the Bureau into the judicial branch. Our U.S. Marshals are critical to protecting the rule of law, and they must be able to do their jobs without political interference, Booker said. Well, what makes you think that they're getting political interference right now? They were basically held back from going after a senator, which, by the way, this entire thing over the ICE detention center and having representatives there that broke the peace, you could argue, rightfully so, that Senator Schumer lost his immunity from arrest, constitutional immunity from arrest, when he broke the peace by basically standing on the court steps and threatening judges. Yeah. So anyway, Schumer, of course, announced the introduction of the legislation in a Thursday post on X. He says it'll stop Trump and Bondi from interfering as they enforce court orders or weaponizing them to intimidate citizens and government employees. Yeah. So apparently, if by some miracle this actually passes, it would empower the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, meaning John Roberts, to appoint a U.S. Marshal Service director and other officers for each judicial district. And it would also prevent the administration from using the agency to intimidate its opponents, Democrats claim. Yeah. All right. Now, Democrats are claiming, of course, that numerous occasions the White House has sent U.S. Marshals to harass those across the president. One in particular is former U.S. Pardon Attorney Liz Oyer. She claimed that the White House sent armed U.S. Marshals to her home to cow her into silence after she was fired because she did not want, oh my gosh, actor Mel Gibson's gun rights to be restored. Yeah. Okay. She's pulled a Schiff and a Smollett and not produced any evidence as of yet. Concrete evidence of it other than just her claim. I'm telling you. The anti-Americans are the Democrats, the Democrat Party, the Democrat leftist morons that are running the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party didn't used to be this way. I mean, granted, I was politically and ideologically opposed to them, but they were not this crazy. They were not this nuts. Just totally crazy. Anyway. Well, I've got a couple of stories here real quick that fall into the economics files, Economics 101, because the leftists, morons like AOC, who reportedly has an economics degree, like Kamala Harris, who reportedly has an economics degree, can't figure this shit out. So crude oil prices have been declining. And here's essentially where the likely decline is coming from. I mean, let's be honest, it hasn't really been because of there are some price cuts that OPEC has done. We know that. There have been some differences in our inflation rate. We know that. Excuse me. We know that. But crude oil prices have been declining because there's been potentially an unexpected U.S. inventory buildup. So, as of May 21st, a report from the Energy Information Administration stated that for the week ending on May 16th, U.S. commercial crude oil inventories, excluding anything that's coming from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, increased by 1.3 million barrels from the previous week. So at 443.2 million barrels, U.S. crude inventories are about 6% below the 5-year average for this time of year. So we're still below the average. However, we have a little bit of a stockpile coming in. Now, this is the law of supply and demand, folks. It's very simple. We are not driving quite as much. That's one. Okay? An increase in production is part two. And what you end up with is a surplus. That surplus is driving prices on the market to go lower because everybody wants to sell theirs. They have to sell it at a competitive price. They're sitting on a lot of it, and when people don't buy it, they go and they have to lower their price in order to encourage people to buy. This is simple Economics 101. Supply and demand. That's it. And it's these kinds of things where a market oversupply and people using less fuel than normal puts downward pressure on oil prices. It's very simple. Now, the national average for the price of regular gas was $3.19 per gallon on May 22nd, according to AAA, the American Automobile Association. Granted, that was nationwide. That was actually down more than 11% from the $3.61 a year ago. Now, in certain localized areas, you're going to have gas prices that are going to be higher. For an example, California, Hawaii, and my lovely state of Washington will have prices that exceed $4 per gallon. A lot of that is because of the stupid-ass taxes that they've added onto it. The cheapest prices across the country were recorded in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama. Gas costing right around $2.75. Crude oil futures have also fallen for the past couple of days, with the May 22nd decline the third straight fall on a daily basis. Supply and demand, people. Supply and demand. Now, here's another lesson in Economics 101. I don't know if anybody knows this, but the city of Los Angeles has approved a $38 minimum wage for its workers. Now, this apparently is in preparation for the 2028 Summer Olympics. Now, the city has already been struggling, okay, because of the wildfires that destroyed significant portions of two neighborhoods back in January. I've reported on that quite extensively because I follow people like James Woods, who was a victim of that. But here's the thing. The city council approved a new minimum wage law that would apply to airports and hotels of a certain size. Okay? And that... They gave final approval yesterday to an ordinance that is going to increase the minimum wage for hotel and airport workers. The problem is that these hotels, who back when the Olympics was awarded to Los Angeles back in 2017, did it based off of costs that were $17 per hour. And they negotiated a reasonable, what would be considered a reasonable room rate under the idea that they would be potentially an average of $17 an hour. Well, now that this city council has decided to go ahead and raise rates, which, by the way, beginning in 2026, workers are expected to earn $25 an hour, $27.50 an hour in July of 2027. So this is going to go basically $2.50 roughly every single year, and up to $30 an hour in July of 2028. They'll also receive a new $8.35 per hour health care payment, which will begin in July of 2026. Well, now the hotels are like, you know what? That negotiated rate that we said that we would give you, several hotels, not all of them, but several, they're all getting on board and they're saying, you know what? Yeah, we can't sustain that. We will actually lose money under this new law in that negotiated rate. We're backing out of the deal. We're done. Now, Mayor Bass has not signed it yet. So if she does approve it, okay, if she does sign it, which I fully expect the moron will, the sudden spike in labor costs is going to present a real problem for the hotels that were already struggling because of a slow recovery from the pandemic. They're still dealing with slow recovery. In fact, I don't know if anybody has ever seen it, but, you know, on my Netflix, whenever I watch Netflix shows, I see ads for, hey, come to Los Angeles. Tourism is great, you know, and they try to show you how beautiful and everything it is, not showing you like the the tent cities that are on the streets and the fecal matter that comes from humans all over the roads and sidewalks. I mean, they're almost just as bad as Seattle with the same thing, as well as all of the opioid needles and stuff like that just discarded on the sidewalks. Telling you, I would never go to a major city in the United States right now at all. You couldn't pay me enough to go there. But these hotels are coming back and they're basically saying, yeah, guess what? Yeah, we're not going to do this. We're not going to do this. So a group of hotels has threatened to pull out of an agreement to provide discounted rooms for the Olympics. So we're going to have to see what this is going to do here. At least 8 Los Angeles hotels are poised to withdraw from an agreement to provide discounted rooms for the 2028 Olympics if the city decides to finalize a plan to raise the minimum wage for tourism workers to $30 an hour. Hotels have notified the Olympics Organization Committee, known as LA 28, that they are of their decision to pull out of the Olympic room block agreement, according to the Hotel Association of Los Angeles. And more hotels are slated to follow if the city council approves that ordinance and that the mayor signs it into law. So it's not just some of these guys. It's going to be all of them eventually. Yeah. So anyway. All right, folks, I have one more thing really quickly. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of hanging on this for this, but I got to show it to you. So here, this is... My Whiskey Warriors are so great. You guys, I love you all. So here, this is a Whiskey Warrior pin badge, or patch, I should say. And, of course, the wonderful hat from Coco. Now, Coco was at a reservoir, and she told me what it was, and I've already forgotten what it was. Let me go back and see if I can find it here. This Coco popped into the chat. And there we go. This is Gray Rocks Reservoir in Wheatland, Wyoming. Gray Rocks Reservoir in Wheatland, Wyoming. And I am on the shoreline. But that's not the only place, apparently, that I've been there. I didn't know that I could divide myself, to be honest with you. But hey, being in 2 places at once is a talent. So here we are. I am in Kentucky. I'm in Kentucky. Bonnie took me to some Kentucky places, a couple of them. She's got 2 or 3 pictures here. So there's this one. I'm apparently on top of some sort of a squirrel or a platypus or a beaver or something like that. I can tell by the flat tail that's just on the very outside edge of the picture, you know, right over here. Right there. And now I'm on a horse. I'm on a golden horse. This is awesome. I'm in Kentucky on a golden horse. And not just one, but wait. Oh, I guess that changed. Not just one, but 2. So there we are. The Golden Horse is wearing the fantastic Whiskey Musings / American Perspective hat. And here, this is for Memorial Day. So the Blue Star Memorial Highway. No hat in this photo, but thank you, Bonnie, for sharing that. I know Bonnie has left the chat. She couldn't stay, but she did stop in. So here it is. This is a tribute to the armed forces who have defended the United States of America. It was sponsored by the Corbin Garden Club in cooperation with the Whitley County Road Department and the Kentucky Department of Highways. And so that's a sign for there. So there you go. All right, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And once you are signed up and signed in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel and get notified. And don't forget to hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up, or, you know, if you really want to, you can hit the thumbs down, too. I mean, it's letting me know that you're at least listening. Anyway, across all of my platforms, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, and of course the aforementioned Rumble. We will see you Monday, Memorial Day. Don't forget, lower your flag to half staff at sunrise, and then raise it to full staff at noon. We will see you Monday right here on American Perspective at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great rest of your evening and a great rest of your Sunday. We'll see you on Monday. Good night, everybody.